Have you ever seen someone on screen who felt so familiar, so safe, and then surprised you by showing a whole other side? That's exactly what happened with Suzanne Pleshette. Most people remember her as the warm, witty wife on the Bob Newhart show, but there was a braver, bolder, and deeply human side to Suzanne that few expected. Today we're going to unpack that moment when she showed it all, not in a sensational way, but in a way that made people want to sit down, be quiet, and think about who they really are. Stick around. This story will stay with you. Suzanne Pleshette began her career long before sitcom fame. She was a stage-trained actress with a quick intelligence and a voice that could cut straight to the truth. On the Bob Newhart show, she played Emily, funny, loving, perfectly cast, and millions of viewers invited that Emily into their living rooms every week. But Suzanne the person was more complex than any role. She had a courage about her, a willingness to be honest on camera and off, and that's what led to the moment that surprised so many. One day, Suzanne made a choice that, to some, looked shocking. She posed for a famous magazine in a way that felt open and raw. To be clear, this wasn't cheap publicity or a stunt. It was a decision by an artist who understood the power of truth. The photos were not designed to titillate. They were designed to reveal, to show a woman unvarnished and unafraid. And when people saw them, the reaction was more complicated than applause or outrage. It made people pause. Why did those pictures matter so much? Because they carried risk. Suzanne could have kept the tidy, familiar image, the laugh lines, the polished TV wife. Instead, she chose vulnerability. She put herself in a place where judgment was possible, where whispers could be cruel. And yet she did it. That's bravery. That's someone saying, "This is me, whole and messy and beautiful." It forced viewers to reevaluate their idea of her and, just as importantly, made them examine something in themselves. Think about how rare that is. We're conditioned to accept the safe versions of people we admire. We like the comfortable characters because they fit neatly into our days. But an artist showing another side, especially a side that refuses to be small, invites us into a different conversation. Suzanne's images weren't a final answer about who she was. They were a question. How honest are we willing to be with ourselves and others? And there's a ripple effect to that honesty. When a public figure takes that kind of risk, it gives permission. It tells ordinary people that it's okay to stop pretending perfection is the goal. It nudges us to consider the parts of our lives we hide for fear of shame or ridicule. Suzanne didn't force anyone to change. She simply held up a mirror and trusted that people would look. Many did, and they stayed with their thoughts afterward. They considered their own masks, the small compromises, the things never spoken aloud. That quiet reflection? That's the real impact. Suzanne's life after that moment continued to reflect her integrity. She was never content to be defined by a single role or a single photograph. She stayed curious, continued acting, and kept speaking honestly in interviews about the work and the cost of fame. She taught us that being a public figure doesn't mean surrendering your inner life. It can mean risking it in order to connect more deeply with others. What can we take from Suzanne Plechette's story? First, vulnerability is strength, not weakness. Second, authenticity invites reflection, in others and in yourself. Third, the real influence of art often happens in silence. The quiet reflection, the late-night thoughts, the change that can start with a single brave choice. If you ever feel tempted to hide a piece of yourself because it's messy or complicated, remember Suzanne. She stepped forward and reminded us that truth can be startling and liberating. Thanks for watching. If Suzanne's story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, what part of yourself are you ready to show a little more?